Welcome to the From Lab to Patient, Garage to Market podcast with your host, Phil Crowley. In each episode, we will discuss professionals serving the tech startup market and the various issues of importance to those companies. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, CrowleyLawLLC.com. Now here's the host of From Lab to Patient, Garage to Market, Phil Crowley.
Welcome, and thanks for tuning into our podcast. We look to bring to you leaders in the life sciences and technology area, people who have insights about building, growing, running life sciences and technology businesses. To try to help you make sense out of the fast-paced and sometimes chaotic world of startups and growing companies. We hope that the insights that we provide you will help you on your journey into entrepreneurship. I'm delighted to have with us today Pam Cheng, who's the Executive Vice President for Global Operations and Information Technology and the Chief Sustainability Officer for global healthcare giant AstraZeneca. Pam and her team have done some fantastic work in sustainability. And in fact, Time magazine named Pam to its Health 100, the 100 people who have had the greatest impact on health in 2024. It's quite an extraordinary and singular honor for Pam. Pam, welcome.
Thank you, Phil. Really delighted to be here.
It's wonderful to have you. Pam, how did you get started in STEM? Why did you choose STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, instead of something else? Was there something in your family history or your background that oriented you in that direction?
Well, so I wish I can be really intellectual around the answer around, I have this natural curiosity and so on and so forth. But truth to the matter is, it came down to two things. It was my father's reverse psychology and my sort of relentless passion to not like to hear, it's not possible to do something. So I think in later on in life, I realized my father really wanted me to go into STEM, go into engineering specifically. Mm-hmm. And he started when I was in high school, we started the conversation around what to study in university. And he said something like, well, it's very tough for girls to be in engineering. So it's totally cool if you want to do accounting, and there's nothing wrong with accounting or others or whatever the case may be. So that's all. So Dad knew me apparently better than I thought he did. So that's all he needed to say. And I applied to Stevens and applied into chemical engineering curriculum, and the rest was history. But I think it was a bit of, I've got this aspiration of always challenging the status quo, right? And as I said, I really dislike the term "it's not possible to do something." So really that was on that basis I went into engineering school and the engineering curriculum. But I have to say I'm very fortunate that it turned out super well. It's been very rewarding and satisfying, and I actually love it. So.
Well, it's very important to be able to do something that you love to do. But I found, Pam, that people who go into STEM and have a STEM education seem to have abilities that they can expand far beyond straight technology kinds of jobs, because it seems to me that studying engineering particularly makes you a creative problem solver, particularly going to Stevens Institute of Technology. Could you outline for our audience, what was your career path? How did you start out using your technical knowledge, and how did that grow and develop over the years?
Oh, absolutely. So I think it's a great question, because the practical matter is what I've learned 30 plus years ago in engineering school. Quite honestly, technology have moved on. I mean, the basics of engineering stays the same, right? Thermodynamics is still thermodynamics today. However, the manufacturing, I mean, the technology in our labs, the technology in our manufacturing facilities, even the IT, the digital capability have changed significantly. So I think what's core, the training from a STEM education, it stays with you forever. What it stays with you forever is actually that problem solving skill set, that discipline, solving problem in an evidence-based way, a data-based way, and being guided by a set of logics that we learned in school, and that doesn't change. And I have to say, I've had the good fortune of being in technical roles, but also in business roles. And I have to say, when I was running the subsidiary in China for Merck, for example, I use engineering skill sets. I use problem solving skill sets. I use lean, which is part of what we learn in school in doing my business day to day. So I think that mindset, that database approach, that problem solving skills, that natural curiosity around learning more, getting into the relevant levels of detail, the ability to seek out new technology, apply it, and drive business value out of it. I think that's the common theme throughout sort of my first job to the job I have today.
Well, you seem to have made a jump from a senior engineering job into some management type of jobs where instead of doing the work yourself, you have to manage and actually, as a leader, inspire people to want to do what you need to have them to do. How did that happen? I mean, were there mentors who helped you through that process, or is it something that you had to figure out on your own?
I think it didn't happen overnight, right? So I've had the good fortune of working with some great people. So certainly learning, not so much around a mentor per se or mentors, but it's really more around learning from the people I work with. And I work with some of the best and the brightest in the industry, and some of the really good people where, they have the patience to teach me. They have the patience to answer my 1,001 questions from time to time. But I do think, using my own journey as an example, there's a distinctive sort of transformation from a small team leader or individual contributor to leading a large organization, leading a large team. Because I think what drives success as a small team leader, as an individual contributor, are not the same characteristics in driving success for leaders with significant organizations, significant teams. And to the point you just made, as an individual contributor, as a senior engineer, as a small team leader, you roll up your sleeves and you go at your pace, right? Those who knows Pam Cheng, speed is everything. For me, it's by getting things done and getting things done right and getting things done on time or before time. And that was fine, quite honestly, throughout the early points of my career. And I didn't notice that type of skill set was good in early times, but as I move into management jobs with more and more responsibility, it didn't work quite so well because, to your point, you heard of the term, you have to slow down to speed up. And it was precisely the feeling I had. I couldn't run at my speed. I need to make sure I take the team with me.
Right.
I couldn't do the job on my own. I couldn't do the job with 2 or 3 people next to me. I need the entire team. So it was a learning moment in my career. There were many learning moments, but it was one that I remember clearly where, as a people leader, the acknowledgement and the realization that I really need to learn how to listen better to truly get the best out of my team is to listen better, to not jump to conclusions, to work at a pace where that's common to all of us, and not sort of run ahead when the team is not with me. So I think there are distinctive skill sets we learned over time. For me, it was really watching the best and the most brilliant at work. What works, what doesn't work.
Right.
It was asking questions and learning and and just really that relentless pursuit of being better.
Right. Well, the thing that impressed me about your description, Pam, was the humility that you had to say, well, I need to be able to listen to people and to hear what they're saying, which some people who have the view that, you have to be the dictator to make things happen actually doesn't seem to work in the current environment with the current crop of employees. And it seems that that's part of your learning and your development as a leader.
Absolutely. And I think, Phil, I mean, I often remember this. I said, if I find myself as a leader being the only one that's speaking and the rest are silent, there's something wrong.
Mhm.
If I find myself being the smartest person in the room, there's something wrong with that. Right. So I think in the end of the day, to the point you've made, I mean, we hire some of the best and brightest. They've got so much to offer, right? Why not unleash that? Unleashing the power and capability of everyone that we work with is much, much more powerful than what we can do individually or a small group of people, no matter how bright and brilliant we are.
Right. Well, now you mentioned some things about watching and seeing techniques that don't work in the management sphere, things that don't work that do work in the management sphere. But I'd like you to think a little bit about the companies that are trying to work with a giant, a prestigious company like AstraZeneca, and how they get in and how they succeed. If you had an opportunity to give some advice to companies that are looking to partner with larger companies to be more successful, are there some indicia of success, kind of success factors? And conversely, are there things that small companies do that actually turn off the big company and make the big company say, well, I would never work with that company?
Right. That's a great question. I would say every company is different. So I can answer for the companies I've worked for and the companies I'm working for now. I would say a couple of advice I would give. One is know who you are working with, right? So you got to, if you're working with AstraZeneca, you got to know who AstraZeneca is. You got to understand where are the niche or the spaces that I can, as a small company, smaller business, can add value.
Mhm.
Right? I think the worst thing you can do is to come to a big company like AstraZeneca and give a very general sort of pitch, what I call the motherhood and apple pie stuff, right?
Right.
So I think being specific, addressing a particular pain point, a gap, solving real problems, adding real value, it will get you into the door. But coming across sort of general, sort of an outfit of all trades, if you will, in a large company, there's just not a lot of opportunities to add value. I would also say being pragmatic, right? I mean, what is a sweet spot of a smaller company and a startup? That nimbleness, that speed, that ability to just move without a lot of organizational bureaucracy, right? So
Mhm.
I think bringing that nimbleness, that agility, that speed, that flexibility into a big company and serving a particular purpose, solving a particular problem would be very valuable.
Well, it seems as if what you're saying is that just like big companies do due diligence on smaller companies that they may work with, the
Mhm.
small company really needs to do due diligence on the big companies to find the places where, as you were mentioning, they have pain points that the
Mhm.
unique technology that the smaller company has can really solve.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No matter which side of the table you sit in, you've got to know who you're talking with, what is it that you're trying to do, what value you're trying to add. It's all about value, value, value. Yeah.
I see. So it's not just neat ideas, but it's practical values that will advance the business of your counterparty. That,
Absolutely. You think about all the tools, the technology. I mean, we have an unprecedented explosion of digital tools, right? Whether it's
right.
AI, generative AI, and so on and so forth. the key part is the application, right? So the applications of these really super cool tools and innovative tools. And I think finding that application opportunity, being pragmatic about again, solving a business problem is key.
Super. Well, at this point, I'd like to tee up something for you to think about, and that is the application and implications of artificial intelligence for the pharmaceutical and biotech industry. But at this point, I'd like to take a minute to introduce Crowley Law to our audience. We are a boutique law firm that is passionate about helping life sciences and other technology entrepreneurs realize their dreams, to take great ideas from the laboratory bench to the patient's bedside, or from the garage to the marketplace to enrich the lives of thousands or even millions of people. It's what turns us on. I'm a former research physicist who decided that he wanted to have a little bit more immediate impact on work, on life, and quality of life than I could have. I was studying superconductivity. That's the situation where at very low temperatures, materials lose all resistance to electricity. It's one of the technologies used in magnetic resonance imaging scanners to create those immense magnetic fields. But our view is that it's very important to protect the founders and the people who are creating the technology. And I have many stories of founders who have made mistakes along the way and have given away too much of their company and control of their company to others and wound up not really receiving a significant share of the benefits of the technology that they themselves created. And we're very passionate about helping those people. We have a website, Crowley Law LLC, that has a great deal of free resources that are relevant to startup companies. And we invite you to go out there. And if you have questions, if you're on that journey of entrepreneurship, please contact us at info@crowleylawllc.com to set up a conversation. We're here to help. All right, Pam, I gave you some extra time to think about that. What about the impact of artificial intelligence on the pharma business generally?
Oh, it's already having a real impact on the industry. Everything from how we discover potential sort of medicines in our labs to manufacturing, which is in my area, to manufacturing, to delivery to the patients, if you will, and even post the patients in terms of monitoring and so on and so forth. We see digital and AI playing a huge part in sustainability as well. So I give you one example, and maybe I can bring, I give you a few examples actually, but one of the examples I want to bring science and also sustainability together. I mean, one of the functions I have within AstraZeneca is what we call the product development. So product and process development. We basically take a molecule from the lab and we transform it into a medicine that a patient can take, right? Whether it's in a pill form or a bottle, a vial form, or a syringe or injectable, whatever the delivery device is. In the old days, and I used to be one of those engineers, we used to have a bunch of engineers and scientists and go into the labs, right? We will run experiments, dozens and dozens of them. We would have very thick lab notebooks, and we will record the attributes, the parameters, and the results of the experiments. And then it's all about trends and statistics, right? You got to accumulate data. It would take, I remember we used to run sets of experiments that would last 2-3 months. And then we get the data and we would analyze the data, we will synthesize and come to conclusions, and we will optimize the processes. Today, we use what we call the digital twin. So we effectively can model the molecule and the unit operations, if you will, right? So we can simulate the syntheses of the molecule, and we can run the number of experiments where it used to take me a week in a matter of minutes today. Right? So we're using these digital twins to really optimize the processes in manufacturing and medicine, for example. So that's one example. So it's definitely making a difference. We use what we call the knowledge graphs within research and development, and we have these huge libraries of data. And effectively, it really helps us identify the lead candidates as we do drug development.
Mhm.
In manufacturing space, we are moving towards we've been on a journey of moving towards what we call the smart factory, where we've got connected devices, sensors, and so on and so forth. Now we are moving towards autonomous manufacturing. That doesn't mean there's no people. It just means we are leveraging the intelligence of machines and data capabilities on our manufacturing floor. One of the things, example, I want to go into a little bit more detail on how we're leveraging technology, digital, in sustainability space. So in the United States, last year, we've announced an effort with a company called Vanguard Renewables to develop renewable energy. So instead of fossil natural gas, how do we use biomethane, right? So we have Vanguard Renewable is actually an expert company in what we call an anaerobic digestion process. And so it's effectively taking farm waste. So think cow manures, right? Food waste, processing waste from a food processing plant, for example. You take it as a feedstock. You go into what we call the anaerobic digestion process, and then you create biomethane, and you purify the biomethane, and the end product, biomethane, has very similar properties to natural gas. So you can actually inject biomethane into the national grid to power facilities. So we have a big ambition, and we are collaborating with Vanguard Renewables to build these anaerobic digestion plants.
Mhm.
And our goal is by 2026, we would have all R&D facilities of AstraZeneca, all manufacturing facility of AstraZeneca in the United States power solely by biomethane, moving away from fossil natural gas. Now, you might say, okay, that's pretty cool, Pam. That's the sustainability stuff that we're doing. On the other hand, what we are doing now, we are bringing our AstraZeneca excellence in biology, chemistry, and digital. So we are now working with Vanguard Renewables and using artificial intelligence and including digital twins, and say, how do we model this anaerobic digestion process and increase the productivity efficiency by multiple fold, because we can run these simulations so fast and analyze the data so effectively. Today, the biomethane will be multiple times more expensive than natural gas. So you can imagine the challenge to scaling that.
Right.
We can improve the productivity multiple fold. Imagine the power and reach near parity, let's say, between natural gas and biomethane.
Mhm.
You now are talking the possibility of scaling this very, very broadly.
So you're using those artificial intelligence tools that you're using in the laboratory for process development for your manufacturing, and applying those same tools to the biomethane, that is creating methane from biomass, basically, in terms of trying to improve those processes so you can bring the price down, and then use that as the source of natural gas for your facilities, and presumably turning other sources of energy off so that you can use more of the biomethane.
Absolutely. And it's a circular economy in the works, right? Because you think about farm waste and food waste, if untreated, they release methane into the atmosphere, which is harmful, right? So it's really that circular economy in motion, where zero waste and we reuse the energy sources.
Well, that's great. Well, this is, one of the reasons why Time Magazine named you and
It's a
with
team
you
effort.
and your team to recognize you for the Health 100. How did you get involved in the sustainability? Did that grow out of the attempt to become leaner in your manufacturing, or how did that grow up?
No, so this came about because we as a company, we saw the interconnectivity between the climate crisis and health, right? We are in a business of driving human health, but if our planet is sick, it really is a moot point. So long story short, back in 2021, we launched a very ambitious sustainability program called Ambition Zero Carbon. So effectively, we're saying we would decarbonize our supply chain end to end. It was very, very ambitious. And I was tap on the shoulder and say, Pam, hey, how would you be able to take this on in addition to your day job? It's one of those things. Hey, never say it's not possible to do. So I say, sure, why not? But there are moments where I regret that. It's a lot of work, but I don't regret what I'm working on. It's quite meaningful. I mean, I don't know if you know, Phil, but 12 million people die every year due to pollution and extreme temperature caused by climate crisis, more than COVID, right?
Yes.
And there are unintended sort of issues where you see rises of respiratory disease, cardiovascular disease that are related to climate crisis. And unfortunately, the underserved population gets impacted the most by climate crisis. So we saw that interconnectivity between health and climate crisis, as well as healthcare system resilience, if you will. So that's why we came together as a company saying we have a responsibility to act and we have an obligation to act. And we're trying to set an example of how, public-private partnerships and how private companies can make a real difference.
Right. And certainly, I think it shows the lie to the claim that pharmaceutical companies are only in it for the money, but also, they are responsible stewards of what they're doing. As you know, Pam, I spent 32 years in the law department at Johnson and Johnson, and I was always struck by the passion that they and we see you have for doing well by people and focusing on increasing worldwide health. And so when you were in Johnson and Johnson, we would characterize your volunteering for the sustainability job as being voluntold. That you were going to take on that. But you've got such a busy life at AstraZeneca, and yet you have contributed mightily to your alma mater, Stevens Institute of Technology, first on the President's Leadership Council and now as a trustee of Stevens. And how do you find the time to do all that?
Well, it's time management is one skill set I learned when I was studying it at Stevens. But no, but I think truth to the matter is we all prioritize where we want to spend our time. So I don't watch television. That's something I gave up, and I've got better things to do, and I prioritize others over that, for example. So I think it's important to me to give back to Stevens, right? I mean, where I am today, a lot of it I owe it to the education I had and the training I had in the school. And I do see STEM schools like Stevens are trying to do a lot of good work in developing the next generations of STEM leaders. So I do find it very meaningful, very valuable to be a part of that. I mean, education is key for our future. The next generations of educated leaders, whether it's sustainability, whether it's technology, whether it's medicine. I mean, that's our future. So happy to be playing a role in that. But to your point, the point you made around sort of the pharmaceutical industry, sometimes pharmaceutical industry gets this sort of not less than good reputation because of politics and media, whatever the case may be. It's just such a convenient topic. But truth to the matter is, I myself and many colleagues that I work with in no matter which company in this sector have always found ourselves to be very privileged to be able to work in this sector. I mean, not everyone gets to wake up every day and go to work and say, as a direct impact of what I do every day, there's a patient in the end of the day that we are helping to be healthier, or in more severe cases, saving their lives. So for me, in cancer, for example, one of the ambitions we have is how do we eliminate cancer as a cause of death? I mean, that gives me the goosebumps, and it still does. My own mother have cancer, and I wish I would do anything and everything to have a course of treatment. to make her healthy again, right? So imagine that day when we can eliminate cancer as a cause of death. Now, for many forms of cancer, we now can actually make it close to chronic disease, right? You get
Right.
treated and your cancer gets sort of controlled. So, I mean, I'm a believer. The day will come, and I think the industry and the sector are doing some amazing work, and I'm proud to be a part of it.
And Pam, for many years, the pharmaceutical industry was sort of characterized as an old boys network, and it was difficult for women to be recognized. And I kind of view you as a role model for women who aspire to leadership positions in large companies. What advice would you give, based on your experience, to women who are looking to break through the glass ceiling, who have capabilities and want to be recognized and have opportunities to express those abilities?
Absolutely. So first of all, thank you, Phil, for your kind words. I would say, again, I can only coach the next generations of women from my own experience. And I think confidence is key. It's about believing in yourself. It's about being comfortable in your own skin, right? I mean, in the early days of my career, um, quite honestly, I mean, when I was at Stevens, I mean, female was a absolute minority in the student population, right? And
Yeah.
it was not so different out in the workplace as an engineer. And I see a lot of my female colleagues, many moons ago, trying very, very hard, lack of better word, to be a man.
Mhm.
And I don't think that's necessary. So for me, it's about, this world takes men and women to go around, right? We need the diversity.
Yeah.
Both men and women brings different attributes and different values, and I think they should be they should be noted and valued. But I think having that confidence, having that comfort in your own skin, and being and challenge yourself, right? I mean, just no matter of gender or ethnicity, I mean, challenge yourself and say, look, you've got a great education, you are bright, you're smart, you want to make a world of good. Challenge how things are done. Speak up. Be confident. And the other thing is, as a woman, I mean, there's a natural tendency to take more of a role as a caretaker in the personal
Mhm.
life, right? I have three grown children, aging parents and aging parents-in-law, for example. It's tremendous pressure sometimes when the kids are growing up and when your parents are getting older, that needs care. And I think females tend to play more of these caretaking taking roles. And I think that's okay. And that's perfectly fine. And I think women have to have the courage to be able to say, look, I need to take care of my family, and make those choices. There were times where early in my career, when my kids were younger, I had no problem saying to my boss, it was tough, but I have no problem saying, listen, I promised my child to be at this sports event. I promised my daughter to be at the recital.
Right.
I can't be at this meeting. Similarly, I've told my kids and say, honey, I'm so sorry, but I need to really be at this meeting because it's important for me. And I cannot be there. So I think for me, it's always okay to make trade-offs, right?
Mhm.
It's even okay to have compromises, but it's never okay to have regrets. So, and that's the motto I've lived by.
That is fabulous. Well, the time has flown by, and I know you have so much more to give, but we're out of time for today. Pam, thank you so much for sharing those valuable insights. I hope that the entrepreneurs who are listening to this podcast take away from it the wealth of insights that you have been able to provide. And thank you so much for being with us. Well, that's the end of our podcast for today. Please remember to visit CrowleyLawLLC.com for the materials that we have that are really focused on helping innovators in the life sciences and technology to succeed, to have a better understanding of the situation that they're in. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please like it, subscribe to it. We promise that we will have more contributors and innovators in the field like Pam for the future to have wonderful conversations. Pam, thanks again.
Thank you, Phil.
You've been tuning into the From Lab to Patient, Garage to Market podcast with your host, Phil Crowley. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, CrowleyLawLLC.com. If you found this information helpful, please subscribe, like, leave a positive review, and share with others.